Howdy guys. So, as I'm doing all of these videos for you, let me take a sip of my coffee. I'm sorry. I should not be sipping coffee while I'm trying to do a video, right? Give me a minute. Un momento. I've been thinking a lot about a hair in my mouth. I've been thinking a lot about my life and the last few months that I've been here, like, what am I gonna do now? Like, I've had my birthday since I've been here. I'm now 40. There's a whole little fiasco. Like, I think I've actually gone through a midlife crisis kind of deal. And I don't want to say I've gone through a midlife crisis, even though I've been open about it. Like, I'm going through a midlife crisis, Like, dude, I just turned 40, and I've got tumors in my foot, and like I've said, I'm going to get to a point where I'm lying to myself and everyone else, like, oh, they're going away. Because really, dude, I don't even want to go through the idea of surgeries, let alone, like, chemo and radiation and all of that for my foot. My hair's soaked, sorry. And, I really am, like, at a crossroads, like, midlife crisis. What do I do now? I'm going back home in a week, and, I'm only 40. Like, I want to do more films and everything in my life, I'll even do some more background work. Yeah, I don't really care, I just really miss being in front of the camera. Um, you know, so I'm putting it out there so all of you know where my head's at the moment, right? And where it's been for the last few months. Like, I am just facing uncertainty, and, like, 11 years of being in entertainment, and actors left for me. I can't really do everything that I would normally do, like, I can't get up and run, like, there's no running down the road for me, Yeah, sorry, you wanted me to run out of a burning building in a film, like, let me grab my cane, and hobble out. And, like, I'm just kind of worried. I feel on the one hand, like, my life has only begun. On the other hand, like, I'm like, and I keep saying like, apparently. Um, and in a way, it feels like my life is kind of over. And I don't want my career to be over. I'm not sure, though, how I'm going to transition into the next phase of my life, still being in front of a camera, which is why I'm opening myself up to doing more, like, background work and everything, because you really don't have to do much. And I'm not really into that. What I want to do is, lead roles and everything. And, there's not really like, a whole lot out there for, being in front of a camera if you can't do anything and everything that they demand of you. To take, when you have a commercial, right? We'll just say a commercial, for example. That's like 30 seconds. You might get a long commercial is like, what, a minute? And you're filming for 8, 12 hours a day. Sometimes, I have been on shoots that are 16 hours a day. And it's a little rough, it's a lot of work. I love being in front of the camera. It's like the greatest thing I've ever done. And I'm trying to give credit to all the other great things that I've done, but I need to have mobility, and I'm not sure how that's going to pan out for me down the road. I'm not sure what companies out there are going to want to, work with me now that I've got tumors in my foot. I'm not sure what roles I can do. I mean, if it's, various scenes, not full-on movies, I would have, a better chance in getting, some gigs. Because they only need you for a couple days or something, right? A week, whatever. Versus, a month or a couple of months of shooting. And so I would probably have a better chance in getting, like, small parts versus, full on, main character positions. And I really want to be open as much as I possibly can and do all that I possibly can, because I don't want 11 years to be all I've had. I don't want now turning 40 to say, okay, that was my life. I want to continue on and be another Betty White in this industry where I'm like, pushing up there in age, and I'm still working. But with her, for an example, I mean, she can walk on both her feet without a cane, So I'm kind of limited as to what I can do. And I don't like the idea of limitations at all. You tell me I can't do something, and I'm like, screw you, dude, I'm doing it, That's the way I've always been. And, I'm a little worried that I may not get but maybe one or two more gigs in my life, and I really don't want that to be the case. I want to return home, and get set up again, so it'll take, a couple of months or something, I'm sure, right? But I want to get back in front of the camera as much as I can and, just do and do and do. And I'm sure even like if I can get, a couple of gigs here and there that are, let's just say, I've got a day doing a background gig, just to get myself in front of the camera. Well, I'm going to be proud of it, and I'm going to be all like, hey, I just did this. It's nothing, it's not like a lead role or anything, but at least I got to be back in front of the camera again. When I was starting out and I transitioned from doing adult-orientated type things into mainstream type things, I was told, I was getting a lot of advice, by some icons in the industry, and I don't want to say that they taught me how to be an actor, because you don't want to give somebody credit for that, and I get it. At first I'm like, what? But I really get it. So, like, Margaret O'Brien, who was in, The Canterville Ghost and Meet Me in St. Louis and, a bunch of these films, huge icon, right? Along with Jerry Marin, who was the Wizard of Oz. He was the Lollipop Guild, and, his wife Elizabeth, and just a bunch of them, like Bill Vick and everything. They had all, and Bruce. And Randall Malone. Randall Malone's like responsible for really getting Pam Anderson and Carmen Electra into the industry, and their careers took off. He's been in a ton of stuff, but they all gave me a lot of advice and kind of showed me the ropes a little, is what I've been able to get away with saying, kind of deal. Because you don't want to say, oh, they taught me how to be an actor, and then what if later on down the road you do something where, the whole industry, let alone all the public, are just like, oh my god, you're like the worst thing ever. Well, then it reflects on them. And they wouldn't want to be held, in any sort of connection with being, tied to someone who's viewed as like the worst person on the planet, or like the crappiest actor of all time. So I really get it. But some of the things that they had taught me have stuck with me over the years. And they've taught me a ton of things, or educated me, or, told me whatever you want to say. And one of the things that really sticks out in my mind that they all were like, yeah, they really, were that you don't choose the camera chooses you. And I didn't know what that really was, I mean, like, I understand what you're saying to me, but being that new in the industry at the time, I really didn't fully grasp that this is God's will for me. This is the life that I am on. And, like, a lot of people go to Hollywood in complete desperation. They will cut their arms and legs off, just to be in front of a camera and have that quote-unquote 15 minutes of fame. And I've been blessed more than some of the biggest names in Hollywood. And everyone that I've worked with, not the people that view TV, but the people that I've worked with on set, have all, not all of them, you know what I mean, but the ones that have talked to me about my own career, have told me, like, you're more blessed than Brad Pitt ever was. Let me explain. When Brad first came out in the industry, he was doing a lot of background work and so on, and working with a couple of companies, and, I know them pretty well, the companies. I've done some work for them as well. But he screwed up, like, he had a moment, whether it was for medical reasons or not, I don't really know, I wasn't there. Or if it was just in, the sake of, dude, let's go get high. He was caught, smoking pot while he should have been there being a good boy and doing his work. And for 10 years, nobody in Hollywood wanted him. No one wanted to work with him. He was basically, like, blackballed for a while. And that's like, ooh, you say blackball in this industry, and it's like, oh, don't say that, But in a way, that's really how it was with him, is that, it was like that. He couldn't even get, a commercial or anything, And, at the time, this is when he was younger, just starting out, and he was a good-looking guy, You would think, like, if you've got any sense of talent, you can follow direction, which I've worked with some big names, and they don't get direction. I won't say anything, because that's not right. But, so with me, like, I've been able to do and do and do, and so I'm pretty blessed. I know I am, I'm not, like I've said before, living off royalties, but at the same time, like, I've been able to get work. And that's one of the blessings, and, I want to continue to do so. I want to continue to find myself in front of a camera again. So I'm putting this out there, basically, like, putting it out there to God and anyone that watches, and, if you're in the industry or not in this industry. So if you're in this industry, help a brother out, man, And I don't mean masonically, but I mean, like, figuratively speaking, you're all like, help a brother out, I really want to be in front of a camera again when I go back home. Really bad, dude. I mean, I consider myself like Pinocchio. I'm a puppet for the world to play with and put away when you're done. And when it comes to those that are not in this industry, okay, it's really got a lot to do with your fan base and how your success level is going. So without having a lot of fans, you can be in front of the camera, doing a movie here. Next year, you do another movie. Let's say next year you got blessed to do 2 movies, right? So it really isn't going to do very much for you unless you have people that want to see you in this or that, and they can't wait to see this. And even if it's just a background spot where it's like, oh, I saw you, like, you really need people as fans, And I know, like, I'm going to be going through a bit more of a crossroad in my life with everything, like, I've been letting my hair grow out again, because on that little note right there, like, I was using the hair scrunchies and just pulling my hair back, and, like, I just would pull it out at the end of the day, and I'd pull out some hair, like you always do, and I had also had a really bad haircut from this Asian lady. I can't remember her name. I don't know why I just said Asian lady. It's not to be racist or anything, okay? Really sweet lady, She also has, like, a beauty supply area, not just, cutting and dyeing hair and everything, right? So that's where I would go and get all my hair dyes and everything. And she's like, I've been in this industry for 24 years, and, I'll give you a haircut. She's given me a few, and they were great. But the last time is why I decided to let my hair grow out again. I'm not letting anybody touch my hair again. You'll be lucky. Yeah. Because this lady went in and took a chunk out in the back of my hair, right down to the scalp. And I've been letting my hair grow out. Thank you very much. From now on, I'll go back to cutting my own hair and not just dyeing my own hair, but I'll do all of it again, because I used to, and I've been dyeing my hair since like 4th or 5th grade, I think, maybe even 3rd grade, I think it was, which started out with like peroxide as you're a child, but I think it was around 3rd grade that I was not only cutting my own hair, I was dyeing my own hair. And I've been doing it ever since. And I really kept seeing that little bit of a bald spot in the back of my head. And it was freaking me out, because now that I'm here, I'm seeing my dad, and he's bald. Sorry, God. I understand it's hard on him. But, my thought was, okay, I'm going to give this a little bit of time. And if I can, let's just say a few months down the road, take a look at it again and see, am I going bald just later in my life than what my dad did? Or is this just from that lady giving me a really bad haircut, Instantly, she knew she did wrong, and, when I come in a couple of months later, that kind of a deal to get more dye and everything, oh, am I ready to get another haircut? And she's like, instantly goes right to that spot. Oh, no, not yet, not yet. Wait. Yanni, you want my hair like Yanni. So, I had told out loud to God, like I do, I'm not a freak. I'm not, like mental cased. I just have grown up having a death experience, and I know that you talk to God. So I was laying in the tub the one day, and I told him, now that I'm 40, if I'm not going bald, and I had always, as a teenager, had long hair and everything. And when I moved out west, like 13, 14 years ago, I cut my hair off with the advice of somebody else. But I cut my hair off, and I know it looks good. But, I'm like, all right, now that I'm 40, and this is around the time in May, right? I'm like, if I'm not going bald That's it. I'm growing my hair out down to my waist, all one length, like I always wanted it. So I began cutting my hair all one length, and I'm like, we'll just let it grow. And if I'm not going bald, then it's just gonna grow. If I am going bald, I'm not going to be one of these people that have a little bit of hair on the sides and a little bit in the back and it's all bald on top and here I'm doing every product that doesn't work, you know. I'm just going to shave it off, dude. So I've come to notice that I'm not going bald. It was just from that haircut and the fact that I was using that hair scrunchie and just pulling it out. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that aren't going to like the fact that I'm growing my hair out, you know. Whatever, that's not your life, it's my own. But I don't want to, you know, alienate a lot of, you know, quote-unquote fan base just because of my appearance, you know, and the fact that I'm growing my hair out, you know. Whatever. So I've got a lot to think about with my life, you know, and really going back to LA in, you know, in a week, getting set back up again in life, you know, and just moving forward. And I really want to do more film. I don't mind doing some TV stuff because I know, like, excuse me, I know you can make a lot of bank being on TV. You can gain a lot more exposure and everything just by being on TV or in commercials or whatever. But I like doing movies. That's where my heart is. You know, I mean, being in front of the camera, if it's for TV or commercials or something, that's great, dude. I love it, and I'll do all about it, you know. But I prefer film and being in movies. I like looking back and watching a movie that I'm in. And there's a lot of them out there that don't like watching any of their work. I do. Which, with the Tao Te Ching, you know, you're supposed to forget about it at the end of the day, and it's supposed to mean nothing to you at the end of the day, and no, I'm sorry, but I'm proud of what I've done. You know, like having some of my stuff up on Netflix, which is no longer up on Netflix, and I wished it was, because I would be watching it all the time. You know, like, I love that. I'm proud of that. And I would love to sit down with Netflix or whatever. You know, I've seen some of my movies up on YouTube even. And there's commercials I've done on YouTube and all kinds of stuff, right? But I like sitting down and watching movies that I've been in. And I like collecting movies that I've been in. You know, going to a movie theater and seeing myself on the big screen was like a huge trip for me. Coming from nowhere in upstate New York. And I was a little reluctant in saying upstate New York because you could be anybody from anywhere. And it just feels like you're from nowhere. You're from a tiny podunk little town, you know, and like the idea of Hollywood is just a million trillion miles away, even if it's only right down the street, you know. And I'm grateful for it all. I'm really proud that I was able to go and get a movie ticket and see myself on the big screen. I'm able to sit down with Netflix and YouTube and everything and watch some of the work that I've done. I love that, dude. But then before I even left to go out west, before I even went to LA, you really need to know that your life manifests before you. And if you look back, you can see where little things have ultimately resulted into what you are doing in your life down the road. So I was having a huge problem because I grew up a metalhead and I always wanted to be a guitar player. Now, I grew up with saying out loud, you know, to myself really only. I didn't want to sound like a freak, but I want to be the god on guitar, dude. And I want to play on stages all over the world. And I still play guitar. You've seen some videos that I've done, you know. I was having a big problem because everyone just kept saying, "Oh, the '80s are over. The '80s are like, now that we're in the '90s and, 2000s and all of that, oh, the '80s are a hangover and I'm still hungover from the '80s." Well, I'm still hungover from the '80s, And I'm so grateful that even the media has acknowledged that the '80s are back and that, they're here to stay this time. And there's no real slam like there was in the '90s upon the '80s. So, in all the comments that I occasionally make, like, hey boys, break out your eyeliner, your high heels, and everything, man, the '80s are back. Grow your hair, tease it up, and here, let me poof up my hair a little, you know? Like, rock on! I mean, the '80s really are back. And if you notice, if you go into a grocery store or you're even in an elevator, you're listening to '80s music, whether it's Muzak or something, they've got '80s music going on for a reason. Now, it may be coming a little slow to you where you are, wherever you are, right? But the '80s are huge, especially all around Southern California. And there's all of the genres of timelines and decades, however you want to put it. There's even like the whole greasers and all of that are there. Um, but the '80s are very much so alive, not just in Southern California. The '80s are definitely back. So I'm not saying I want to go back into being, like trying to make a life as a musician. Um, but what I'm saying is, before I had even gone out west, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I spent all these years playing guitar, man. And I would sit here with, and this, at that time, it was on VCR tape for me, The Lost Boys. And I would sit here at the end of the night, come back home from partying with my friends and family, Um, and I'm just like questioning all alone, watching this in the background, like, what am I going to do in my life? So, at the same time, growing up with, the Munsters and, all of that, there's the Munsters poster in The Lost Boys. Um, and I can look back on my life and see where that's come into play in my life as now that I'm 40, right? Because this is years ago. Um, so if you look back, you can see where your life manifests before you through different things along your path. You can see how, like, a conversation you had, or a thought you had, or a ponder you've had, that kind of thing. You can see how that evolved into your presence, you know? And I can definitely see where music and movies, not just The Lost Boys, but music and movies have definitely shaped me into ultimately going out to LA and becoming an actor. So I really want to do more. I want to be, and I grew up watching the Golden Girls, like, I want to be the next Betty White. I want to find myself in my 80s at that point, looking back and like, wow, I've had such a long career and I've done so much. And, sure, I felt, like, what am I going to do? Is my life over when I was 40? And look at all that I've done since. It wasn't over. It was just beginning, just like I thought. So, with all of you out there that are watching, let me tease up my '80s hair again. Yeah. I love you, and I really thank you for being there for me. And, if I'm blessed along the way that I get to call you a fan, dude, you really don't know what that means for me. I could spend hours just telling you how much it means to me that some person from wherever likes my stuff, thinks the world of me, is getting to know me, and, all of that. If you're somebody out there that's in this industry, You want me to work? Dude, I'll work. You know, you do have to collect money. You're really not supposed to do anything for free. If you meet someone that it's all about synergy, run. I'm not going to name that lady's name. I've done that a couple of times enough already, you know. There's some scams out there. But for me, like, I have offered my services to a couple people. You ever want to do a video, like, say it's with Def Leppard. I got to talk to the drummer the one time online, and I told him, I'm like, you know, and this isn't just for Def Leppard, this is for a couple other people, you know. You ever want to do a video and you think I would be right for it? Get a hold of me. You don't need to pay me. Just by being a huge fan my whole life and getting to be in a video for you, really, dude, that's all the payment I need. Now, that too has manifested before me, because I was openly putting myself out there for free for a few bands. And I grew up all about the 80s, you know, and like I've said before, my aunt, who's big 80s freak, you know, God bless her for it, and I'd like to see her again. It's been over a decade since I've seen her, and it's been like 2 years since I've talked to her. She's, you know, going through a lot on her own life and whatever, and just for whatever reason, we're no longer aunt and nephew, you know what I mean? Which we grew up toxic twins, you know, we grew up best friends, like brother and sister. And one of the posters she had above her door was a Lover Boy poster. And she wasn't really a huge fan of Lover Boy, but she had the poster. Because if you look all around my room, I've got posters all over my walls and ceilings. And it was, for her, that was just a poster to fill some space. She wasn't really a huge fan. I love Lover Boy. I always have, and I always will. You know, and at the time, you know, you can go back and look at their catalog in the 80s, and, like, they were huge hits, you know, and I loved them. I also got crap for being a Def Leppard fan, too. She was like, you know, Def Leppard, you know, like, whiny, like, you know, they're gay music or something, you know, for her, and I don't mean that in a slam, but it kind of was a slam. Not on the band, no. But I was always proud. I just loved Def Leppard, and I love Lover Boy, and all these other bands. And then I did a video, which was ultimately for a contest, you know, but I did a video for Lover Boy, which is in the series. You'll see, if you're watching the playlist on, you know, God Bless Freemasonry, you'll see the Lover Boy video I did. Now, for me, that was a huge blessing, huge honor. I was so grateful to do it, and I wanted to, because they were an 80s band and a really big part of the 80s, you know, and had a lot of success from that, you know, I mean, like being in the Hall of Fame and playing at the Olympics and everything. They weren't just a band out of the 80s, they had success. And, so for Stop the Rain, I just spent some time rocking out, getting the feel, listening to it over and over. What am I going to do for this? And I had a bunch of different ideas. You know, I was going to do shooting down at the beach and everything. But ultimately, like, you can't help but to see, even if there's no video at that point, and there wasn't. I was the first video for Loverboy Stop the Rain. And you listen to it, and you can't help but to understand what they're saying, and, you know, pulling everything all together and putting it collectively in your mind, you see like a little video before you even see a video. And it's like that, you know, with people, and me as well. So ultimately, I'm like, screw it, dude. I really need to do what I see in my head. So I did. And for like a couple of weeks or a month or something, what it was, I was the very first video for their song Stop the Rain. And I think that's outstanding. I love it. It turned out to be a bit of a bad omen for me. You know, I'm like, well, if this isn't an omen, you know, because look where I am. The last 5 months, my life has completely changed a month after doing that video. I love Loverboy. So ultimately, I would love to do more work. I would love to do more music videos. If you're a band and I love you and you're an 80s band especially, you know, just get a hold of me, dude. I mean, really, like, if you're a band, like I mentioned, Loverboy or Def Leppard or Whitesnake or, you know, the list goes on and on. Now, for that particular Loverboy video, we had just had a couple of deaths. You know, we had George Michael, so I wore my hoop with a cross. And we had Prince, so I wore my Def Leppard heels. And, you know, I have a poster here above me of John Sykes, who was at the time of this poster the guitar player for Whitesnake. I love Whitesnake, and I love John Sykes, you know? I mean, I am still a guitar player. So, and I was a huge fan of Europe, you know, the Final Countdown. And the list goes on and on. But, so I ultimately pulled together a collection to kind of give a tribute and feel to the 80s, but all together now. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit of tidbit into the, you know, the video that I did for Loverboy. Which I should do a whole separate video on that. Just to give them a little bit more of a shout out, because, dude, I love Loverboy. I'm grateful. So, like I'm saying, if you're, you know, a band, I'll do some videos. You know, I've got a lot of friends in the music industry, or kind of friends, you know what I mean, that you talk to along the way. Feel free to use me. I'm all about it. You know, I mean, especially if I'm a huge fan of you and your work and everything. Like, give you an example, Rudy Sarzo. Now, Rudy has been in some of my favorite bands. But if he were to do a video with him, you know, on his own career, under his own, you know, like the Rudy Sarzo project, you know what I mean? Like, dude, I'll do a video for you because I love you, you know? If you're going to go back and you want me to be, you know, go back into being in one of these other bands like Ozzy or, you know, Quiet Riot or Whitesnake or whatever, you know. Oh, Rudy, my boy, you know, feel free. You need an actor for a video, they need an actor for a video. You don't even need to hesitate, dude. I'll do it. There's no pay for me. Because just by being there in that position and, you know, getting to, like, talk to them for a minute and tell them how much I love the band and so on, right? That's my pay. That's more than what I could ever hope for in my life. You know what I mean? So other bands, you know, like I'm a huge Rat fan, and I know lately Rat is going through a lot. Let's say Rat wants to do a video. Oh, I love Rat. And there's tons of them out there. And I know videos are becoming a big thing again. Because the 80s are back. Now, I am also, as you can see above me, a huge Overkill fan. One day I'll finish that painting. I love my boys. Yeah. See up on the Kill, brothers. They're doing videos again. You want me to be in a video? Run it up, buddy. Call me up, man. I'm all about it, you know. All about it. But I do ultimately want to do more movies. I would be grateful to do more movies. I would be so grateful to do anything, you know? Like, I don't really care what I'm doing as long as I'm doing something, you know, because I'm now 40 and I don't want my life to be over. Over a decade, I've been in the entertainment industry. I want to continue doing that. So I'm willing to do all kinds of stuff. I've even had thoughts of like, okay, what do I do? You know, when I get back out there, you know, what do you want me to do, dude? I started out in the, you know, area of taking my pants down, you know, and I'm like, well, no, you're not supposed to do that again if you're in mainstream. But for the sake of my fans that I've had all these years that have never left my side, you know, 11 years, these people have been right there for me. And I've even gotten Christmas cards and everything from them. You have no idea how much that means to me. So I have even toyed with the thought in my head, you know, like, dude, do I just do something to give back, you know, and make a couple bucks along the way? Because right now I could use all the extra bucks I can get, kind of crap, you know, and like I just want to be in front of the camera again, and I am all about giving back, you know, and, you know, what can I do? My life is of service, you know, and I'm really grateful for all of these people that have been fans of mine for all of these years. You know, not just the ones that are there giving me Christmas cards and emailing me all the time and, you know, like texting me over the years. And, you know, I'm grateful. So I'm willing to do almost anything. I have said that I don't want to do anything that's negative. So I don't mind being in horror. I'm all about horror and all genres of film, right? But I don't want to, and I will say it first, if we're going to be in a horror film, let's make horror. You want to scare people? Let's scare the living out of people, you know? If that involves the brutal massacre of, you know, children, you know, so mote it be. But, you know, that's for a film. I don't want to do another thing that's like, I was in a film where, you know, I got to do a little spot playing David Bowie, right? And the whole thing was smoking, because at the time, back in the 70s and everything, you know, David Bowie smoked. And so I had to smoke. And there's been a lot of backlash or something towards people that smoke, you know, and, you know, people like me in the industry and how that promotes smoking. I don't want to promote smoking. I don't want to promote drug use, you know, but at the same time, I've said publicly, like, I don't want to be someone that promotes things that are bad for your health and all of that, right? I will say, if it's something like I played David Bowie and he was smoking, I really can't play David Bowie now. My hair's growing back out, but pardon me. If it is something where it's not really promoting it, but it's showing what they have gone through, then I'll look at that a little differently, and I will ultimately run it up, dude. Let's do it. You know, when it comes to 80s stuff, right? A lot of the bands, as we all know, partied hard. And I personally lived the life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It just wasn't me in a band at that time. You know what I mean? And so I really get it. You know, like, if I'm going to do anything, because I've done quite a bit over the years, you know, for entertainment, musically, you know, like I said, as David Bowie and so on, right? So if it's to show, like, you know, look at the tragedy of this life and blah, 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 then I think that would be a little different. than saying, you know, I'm a rock star from the 80s. This is a movie from the 80s, and let's smoke our brains out, you know, and hand me some lines and what have you. And I don't mean on paper, but you can put them on paper, you know? Like, so I want to be more aware of the ultimate goal in the project. I don't want to be another actor that's getting all kinds of backlash for promoting and condoning something that's bad for your health. But with that whole stint with David Bowie thing, you know, I had to smoke. So don't hold it against me. And I think it's something that you can apply to any actor that's done this, because so many of us out there, and bigger, you know, platform than I have, you know, have just gotten wicked backlash. You know, it's all about the work, it's all about the project, and a lot of the time, I'll say more often than not, we as the actor don't know what's going to show up ultimately and be the ultimate overall feel and everything of the project. All we know is what we've been able to read and what we've been able to understand. Which a lot of times, I'll give you an example. And just say a lot of times, right? What I had done for Spike Jonze wasn't even the same title what I got as a title and everything as to what was ultimately put out to the public. I had to search for like a good 5 years or something before I actually came across, oh my God, dude, that's what I was in. That's not what I'm, you know, what I have on my, you know, pay stub and everything. It's under a whole different name, you know, but it's like that. So when it comes to like backlash, you know, don't automatically hold it against the